morning, Chaffin Church. How are you doing? My name is Pastor Marty Holman, and I am a wreck. I am camping here in Reedsboro, Vermont. And so I am filming on location, and I hope this is an encouragement to you. I'm excited about doing it. I wanted to share that you don't know someone's story. People have the potential to be great, but sometimes they go through crazy things, very difficult things, and in the midst of those difficult things, you don't know their potential. I have a friend who literally had a boulder dropped down on their head, and the only thing that they had to protect them was an umbrella. The same friend also went off a cliff and fell deep into a canyon. And unfortunately, Wile E. Coyote never caught that darn roadrunner bird. I wanted to become a great NBA basketball player, but unfortunately, I also wanted to eat and drink soda and not practice basketball. So I became a DJ and then a pastor. Listen. Exodus chapter 1 verse 8 says this: Now a new king arose over Egypt, who did not know Joseph. Now, if you don't know the story of Joseph was this guy who grew up as a favorite child, okay? His father loved him. His father had many kids, about 12 or 13 kids, and his father doted on him, but his brothers were jealous. So he was one of the younger kids. Eventually, his brothers got sick of Joseph, and they sold him. They were going to kill him. They decided to sell him into slavery. Okay? So they sold him. They put him in a pit. They told his father that he had been eaten by wild animals. And so at that point, then he gets sold into slavery by some slave traders. Then they sell him to Egyptians, okay? So he goes into the Egyptians, and he becomes kind of a hero, a captain of the household that he's a slave at. They raise him up, and he becomes head over the household. Then the master of the house, his wife, hits on Joseph. Apparently he was a good-looking young man or whatever. She hits on Joseph, and he turns her down and says, "No, I can't do that to my master or my God." To which she then turns him in for essentially hitting on her. Okay, so he goes to prison. Goes to prison for 2 years. And for 2 years he's there in prison, and the only thing he's done is brag a little bit when he was a kid to make his brothers hate him. Okay? Now, he's probably not perfect, so he probably did some other things. But let's continue. He is able to interpret some dreams of Pharaoh, the most powerful person in the entire country of Egypt, to which he is pulled out of prison and becomes second in command over Egypt. At the time, a world superpower, okay? So, that's where we're at in this story. But we have a problem. Hard things can get in the way of us realizing God's purpose for our lives and for other people's lives.
is your faithfulness, oh God. You wrestle with the sinner's heart. You lead us by still waters and to mercy. And nothing can keep us apart. So remember your people, remember your children, remember your promise, oh God. Your grace is enough, your grace is enough, your grace is enough for me. Great is your love and justice, God. You use the weak to lead the strong. You lead us in the song of your salvation. And all your people sing along. So remember your people, remember your children, remember your promise, oh God. Your grace is enough, your grace is enough, your grace is enough for me. Your grace is enough, your grace is enough, your grace is enough for me. So remember your people, remember your children, remember your promise, oh God. Your grace is enough, your grace is enough, your grace is enough for me. Your grace is enough, your grace is enough.
I've gone through my whole life drawing from my experiences, both positive and negative. You have to believe that no matter what happens to you, that all things work together for good. I was rotten. I was a rotten kid. Hey! And my excitement came from seeing what I could get away with. And I got a milk bottle and I filled it full of white paint, turned it upside down, let it drain for a day, and it would fill the milk bottle full of wine or beer or whatever. I had a real professional criminal life as a teenager.
Come ti permetti?
And so then they started talking about what to do with me.
Fatti lavare le mani. Mamma sta cucinando.
And my brother said, well, we got to get him into some activity. And the chief said, well, we've been chasing him all over town for 3 or 4 years. I should just run him.
Come on, Louis!
If I didn't start running, I think I'd have ended up in jail. And what a transition it was. It was just unbelievable. So I quit drinking, quit smoking, and started winning races. That's one thing you learn in sports, is you don't give up. You fight to the finish. And that's important in your whole life, in the war too.
Everybody brace!
The determination to come out first, come out alive. But in prison camp, it's all a different story.
Look at me.
Because you're a victim, and they can do what they want.
Don't look at me.
That's the race for life, and you want to win, and you won't give up.
If I can take it, I can make it.
That's important for everybody in all walks of life, is to persevere. Don't give up, don't give in.
Hey, good morning. I am here with my friend Lynn Salyer, and she is all the way from Ohio. And she has been like a big sister to me for years and years. I'm talking, there are pictures of us where I was just very little. I won't say how old she was at the time, but it wasn't as little as me. And also, she was probably one of the best female basketball players I've ever seen play. With exception, I'll just tell you, I played.
Yeah, you better.
I played against a coach at Holy Cross, an assistant coach at Holy Cross, girls basketball coach, who was on 3 national championships with, I believe it was Rebecca Lobo, Connecticut. And anyways, I didn't fare well against her. No. But anyways, Lynn's here, and that person is not. So, Lynn, thanks for hanging out. And I want to just give me a quick insight as to, like, if I were to ask you to give me a 20-second biography of your life, throw it out there.
Okay, so my name is Lynn Salyer. I am 53 years old. Had to think about that. I am the proud mom of 2 kids that are absolutely incredible. They're both married. And I have 1 grandbaby named Emery. And she calls me Mimi, and that's one of my favorite titles now. Grew up in a Christian home, similar to you, at same Christian school. Went to Cedarville University, played basketball. Should have studied a little more. Left there and came home and started working at our Christian school / daycare for probably 20 years. And then went on to go into insurance, kind of a funky turn, and loved it and worked in that realm until I was diagnosed with cancer a few years ago.
Okay. And so you've written some books about it, and They are a great series. I've read one of them. Honestly, I haven't read all three yet.
My
But
kids haven't read any, so you're
okay, well,
ahead.
so well they've been there with you.
They've
So
been there. Yep.
so tell me, going into that, that's obviously a big trial. Like this has been a lot for you over the last 10 years, 5 years, 10 years, 3 years, 3.5 years. Okay. And so tell me kind of some of the things that have taken place over the last several years.
Um, February 28th, 2017, I found out I had stage 3C ovarian cancer. March 14th of 17, went through big surgery at Cleveland Clinic. Dr. Mahdi removed 15 malignant tumors and part of my bowel and a whole bunch of other stuff. Went through 18 weeks of chemo. Seemed to nip it in the bud. We thought everything was good. I was healthy for 16 months and lived fast and furiously for those months, and then found out that it had recurred in my lymph nodes in June of 19. Went through a very tedious chemo regimen again, which ended in December of 19. Thought I was good. February 22nd of 20, found out that I had several masses back on my pelvis. So now I'm involved in a clinical trial chemotherapy at Cleveland Clinic. It's a targeted chemo, kind of cool actually. If I can tell you just a smidge, because it's pretty cool. So my chemo is based up of two parts. One goes and attaches itself to all the bad cells. Another part of it is only attracted to that antibody. So the premise of it is it'll skip the good cells and be attracted to only the bad cells. So it has been proven that it's worked in other cancers, but not mine. So that's why it's still a trial. I'm entering my 6 months of this trial, and the longest anybody in the country has made it on it without their disease progressing is 7.5 months. So really hoping to break the record. I mean, the competitive part, we want to be there a little bit longer. And the purpose of this drug is to prolong your life and give you quality of life. And so my functionality has been a lot better on this chemo than others. And I get a big scan on Tuesday, actually, because I'm dealing with some symptoms that they're afraid could be dealing with the lesion they found on my liver. So we'll find out more about that on Wednesday.
Okay. So throughout all of this, you have been, even before this, for years, you are a follower of Jesus.
Absolutely.
And obviously this is a big trial. Like, how do you go through something like this and maintain your faith in the midst of something so fierce?
Well, I got to be really honest. Sometimes my first thing is I come out and say, well, it's only because of God. I mean, and that's true. I mean, obviously, that's why we're all still standing here. But honestly, he has given me a support system like no other. And I really do believe living with my parents, having my family, having my church family, having extended family like you. I mean, I just have the most amazing support group. And I think what I've learned the most through this last recurrence is I used to feel guilty when I had the days like that I just didn't want to pray anymore. I was kind of over it and I was just done. But now I've learned that if I have a day like that, I've got thousands of prayer warriors that are going to pray for me through that day, and it's okay. But I don't let myself go beyond that day. A day of that is okay. A day's plural, I won't let that happen because it's just, I want to be here. And I've learned that, God is God, even if, thank you, mercy me. And it's true. I mean, it's helped me to not just talk about my faith, but to actually have to walk it.
Yeah.
Really a large different, I mean, that's why I relate to that Mercy Me song so much, because it's like all my life, I was up on a stage singing, encouraging people, trust, it's all good, just trust. Well, it's all good until you're sitting in that doctor's office and you get that diagnosis and you don't know if you've got next month. And so I know that I'm living on borrowed time, which in a way, I guess we all are. None of us know tomorrow, but it makes you look at every minute as a new opportunity. That's for sure.
Okay. So in the process there, what is the hardest thing about the trials you're going through?
I think the hardest thing for me is seeing my family and my close friends. My daughter's trying so hard right now to get pregnant, and she hasn't been able to, and they're about to start IVF, and I see it in her face. Like, she just wants her mom here. And so it's like thinking about all of that and my parents and what they've had to go through with me being here. That's the hardest thing for me, is to see what it does to everybody that loves me. Definitely.
So one of the things that we're talking about today is watching people go through trials, not even just going through trials.
Sure.
So how would you suggest, what would you say to people who are interested in how do I help someone going through a hard trial? Like the people watching
I
this,
can
right?
tell you lots of ways not to.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. You wouldn't believe some of the songs people send me that they think will be encouraging, or like the people that have literally sent me, I don't know if this is before your time, but the movie Beaches.
I mean, it's slightly is.
Two best friends and one dies in the end. Those kind of things. And for some reason, people have that as some level, they find that encouraging. I remember the week of my daughter's wedding, somebody sent me the country song, Holes in the Floor of Heaven.
Oh, no.
Okay. Oh, yeah. And that's basically about a mom who dies and can't be at her kid's wedding. So I'm like, okay. But seriously, everybody has good intentions. The best thing is to say you're praying for someone and really pray for them.
Okay.
Because I've seen in my own life that I used to throw that out, right? It's so easy. Yep, be praying for you. Yep, I'll pray for you. But then I'd have to stop and think, am I praying for them? Or am I saying I'm praying for them? And somebody that's been in my shoes sitting in that chemo chair, I'm counting on the fact that if you say, hey, Lynn, I'm saying a prayer for you today, you said that prayer for me today. And when I have that confidence, I can't even explain the peace that comes to me no matter what I'm going through, knowing people aren't just saying it, but when you say it. So now actually I found myself even on Facebook, I don't say, I will pray for you. I'll say praying right now. And I'll stop right then and I'll pray that prayer. And then I think, okay, I've done what I said I do. Now, if I do it later on, I feel like that's just added bonus. Yeah. But I think that, and just staying the course, because like 3.5 years ago when I was first diagnosed, you kind of become like the cancer celebrity status, and everybody wants to, be involved and help you. But after 3.5 years, it gets a little bit old, and you feel like maybe people kind of forget, hey, I'm still out here. I'm still going through the same, so just staying the course and still being, sending that text or making that call or, anything like that can encourage somebody to just stay the course with them, because it doesn't end.
Well, maybe just not show you the movie Beaches.
Let's just not show me the movie Beaches.
That's the worst. Okay.
It's a good movie, but yeah.
All right. Well, so moving forward, what positive things do you see from coming from all of this? Like, which is a really, I know, kind of an intense question. Yeah. But here you are. I mean, you've written 3 books and 4?
Fourth just came out, Using My Broken.
Wow. Okay. Well, yes, sweet. And so those are things, in my opinion, are positive. But is there anything else, or have you seen anything positive from any of those things?
So many that I can't. In fact, in all 4 of my books, the chapter that is the longest in it is the one about the blessings. And I didn't even purposely do that. But as I look back, I'm like, once again, the chapter that's the longest are the blessings I've seen. And I'd say one of the biggest things is reuniting with people that maybe I hadn't heard from in 25, 30 years. That's been, for the most part, that's usually good. Um, and then the people that are going through this need somebody who's going through this or who has gone through this, because I've sat in chemo labs where somebody that's never had cancer will walk through with the best of intentions, passing out suckers or, talking to people. And every time somebody sitting beside me will say, yeah, it's pretty easy for them to come through here. They haven't had to sit with this needle on their arm, and they don't mean it bad, but it's just when I go through the chemo lab and I pass out things to people, everybody's so receptive because they know I'm still sitting right there with them.
Yeah.
And in the books part of it, we've donated now, after this new book, we will have donated over 1,000 books to cancer patients. And I've got cancer friends now all over the country, in Spain, and I haven't even met them, but they feel like they can reach out to me. And so that has been really cool. Seeing the difference it's made in my kids as far as relying on prayer and relying on God. I mean, it's made a big difference in my personal family. And then I've got some relatives who really struggle with even believing there's a God. And one of my cousins who saw me in that state in the hospital, who was very much that way, has even made the statement, I didn't wear her bracelet because it had scripture on it. But now I find myself wearing it because if she can still rely on her God going through that, there's got to be something to it. So it's like you hear different things like that, and it makes you want to keep going and keep being that. You can't always be tough, you can't always be strong, you can't always be happy, but you can always choose joy. And so I've learned that difference. But I think it's mainly just the relational things that you can see. Just through all the people who, or maybe somebody that doesn't know much about cancer and now they've read my book. And, we had, I don't know if you know Diane Blue. Did you know her?
Yeah.
Okay. She bought my book from a local place, read the first couple chapters and was like, oh my gosh, I have every one of those symptoms. Went to the doctor, had my exact same diagnosis. Now she ended up going to heaven a few months back, but at the same time, it reconnected us. And so just story after story like that, I could tell you. So really, you bringing up the books, that's probably been one of the biggest positives because it's just connected me to so many people. So I think just the difference you can make in other people's lives is the biggest positive.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Lynn, for your time.
Beautiful.
And I know this was an encouragement for me. And thanks, Chaffin, for listening.
Absolutely. Black and yellow.
Okay. So Joseph's family grows and grows and grows and grows until it becomes millions of people. So it's Joseph and his brothers when they were reunited, and all their families come together, and they have this very beautiful land that was around Egypt. There was a land called Goshen. So then a king arose, as the scripture says, that didn't remember Joseph and the good things that he did for Egypt. So the people of Israel, and they weren't even called that at the time, that family grew and grew and grew and grew until there was roughly 1 million of them, okay? And so that king of Egypt was threatened by those people, and so they took that family and they made them slaves, okay? So they began to mistreat them. Those slaves, though, they built up huge Egyptian cities, and so that is when the period of time when Moses was born. That family began to grow and thrive even in the middle of slavery. So what then happened is the Pharaoh at the time, after a period of years, probably a different Pharaoh than the one I just talked about, that Pharaoh began to realize that the Egyptian or the people from Israel were a threat. So they talked to the Hebrew, another word for Israelites. They commanded the Hebrew midwives. Well, let's look at this in Exodus 1:16. When you act as midwives to the Hebrew women and see them on the birth stool, if it is a boy, kill him. But if it is a girl, she shall live. So these midwives were commanded to kill the boys so that they would not grow any stronger. And so they were commanded to do this for a time. All right. So something I want to mention here is this, that God puts people in charge and he takes them out of their position. This is a truth for all of us, even to this day, in all of history. This is a biblical truth that God puts authority in charge and he takes authority in charge, that God is our ultimate authority. Now, in 1:17, in Exodus chapter 1, verse 17, scripture says this, "But the midwives feared God. They did not do as the king of Egypt commanded them, but they let the boys live." Okay? So this is a turning point. The midwives decided we are not going to follow after this command. Now, this is not something trivial. This is obviously huge. This is not, I have to wear a mask at Walmart. This is, I am not going to kill these little children, okay? God watched over Moses' protectors and these children's protectors and blessed them for taking care of his chosen ones. Because that's what children are. That's what children, both born and unborn, are. Okay? And so God watched over them, and God continues to watch over them. Now, let's read the rest of the story in Exodus chapter 2. Now, a man from the house of Levi went and married a Levite woman. Levi was one of Joseph's brothers, okay? And this was part of the tribes of Israel, right? They weren't created, so they weren't called Levite women at this time. They were from the family of Levi. The woman conceived and bore a son. And when she saw that he was a fine baby, she hid him for 3 months. When she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and plastered it with bitumen and pitch. She put the child in it and placed it among the reeds on the bank of the river. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. Okay, so essentially, this lady understood and hid her baby from the Israelites, from the Egyptians, right? Then her sister, or her daughter, the baby's sister, watched out for the baby when she put him in a basket. The daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river. While her attendants walked beside the river, she saw the basket among the reeds and sent her maid to bring it. Bring that over here, essentially. When she opened it, she saw the child. He was crying, and she took pity on him. "This must be one of the Hebrew children," she said. Now, this princess, this Egyptian princess, it's not like she didn't have a heart. She probably understood what was going on. She probably understood the ramifications of what was happening to the Hebrew children. Okay, so then his sister comes back into the picture. The sister says to the Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and get a nurse from the Hebrew woman to nurse the child for you?" Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Yes." So the girl went and called the child's mother. So this is a great orchestration, okay? Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child and nurse it for me, and I will give you your wages." So the woman took this child and nursed it. This child was her son. She was able to, in this very dangerous environment, raise her son. When the child grew up, she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and she took him as her son. She named him Moses because, she said, "I drew him out of the water." And this is what we know about Moses that they didn't know. Moses would lead his people, would lead God's people to where God wanted them to be. Listen, this is powerful because nobody knew that this baby would do anything. But God had a different picture. As far as Moses' mother knew, she was just trying to protect a baby, her baby. As far as the Egyptian princess knew, she saw a baby and she took it as her own. And I want to tell you this, because I want you to think about this in terms of the children, in terms of babies, even in terms of your own life and the life of those around you. You never know what someone has been through and what God has planned for them.
ไปทำอะไรให้ปลานักหนา
มองหายเห็นแล้วสิโอ้ย มันไม่อยู่แล้ว
I want to share with you 3 lessons that we learned from the supporting actors of this story to help us with hurting people and look at hurting people differently. Because that's what God calls us to do. People aren't just going through stuff. God has a purpose for their lives. But here are 3 lessons that we can learn and that we really should learn and act on when we look at the lives of the supporting actors in this story. The first one is from the midwives, okay? We have to begin taking care of the hurting and the oppressed. Listen, I am not trying to be political when I tell you that the follower of Jesus always takes care of the hurting and the oppressed. These were 2 Hebrew women that if they were caught lying, they could have lost their lives. But they chose to take care of these babies who were about to be born. Who are some of the oppressed people who have been taken advantage of in our world? Children, sex trafficking, people who are hungry, children not born, slavery, immigrants. Listen, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're from, it is really, really possible that people are being taken advantage of. They're being oppressed. People of different races. Listen, we have to be careful that we are not sitting on the side of the Egyptian empire, on the side of the empire. I have a friend, his name is Leroy. Leroy went to college with me, and his wife is an attorney in Atlanta. And he has chosen to live his life with his family, with his sons and his wife, and they live in a really, really rough part of Atlanta. And they work with sex workers in Atlanta. And it's very dangerous work. And they try to build them up, and they try to get them out of that life of oppression, of manipulation. But he puts himself in those intense situations. If we spent half as much time thinking about taking care of people who are hurting than we do scrolling on Facebook, we would be getting stuff done. And the midwives got to a place where they had no choice. They had to take care of the hurting or the oppressed, or choose not to, and those babies would die. Think through this. What is one group of people, or even one person, who is hurting and oppressed that you have decided to take care of, or that you could take care of, that you could step up to the plate, that God has, they put them in your life, and you're the Hebrew midwife in this situation. Okay, so the second lesson that we can learn is this. It's from Pharaoh's daughter. Take every opportunity you can to give someone a hand or help build them up. Here was arguably one of the most powerful people in the world at the time. And she found this baby. And she probably knew what was going on. So she knew the baby was supposed to have died, was supposed to have been killed. But she took the opportunity to save the child. Let me tell you something, little things can make a big difference. I heard one person say recently, do for one what you can't do for everyone. Take every opportunity you can to lift somebody up, to build them up, and to encourage them or to help them any way you can. Yesterday, I was helping. I work at Friendly House for a little bit in the mornings, and this guy wanted to talk to a friend of mine, Darlene, and so he was talking to her. And I really didn't know this guy, and she says, "Oh yeah, you definitely want to talk to Marty. He's my pastor. He's good at this. Talk to him." And so he comes and he talks to me and kind of lays out this thing, and he's really going through a rough time. He's really going through a hard time. I was super busy. I was supposed to leave. But I gave myself permission in the midst of my busyness, okay? And I don't always do this. This is not me tooting my own horn. I gave myself permission to say, you know what? I need to sit here for a few minutes and help this guy. Every person has a purpose. Every purpose has a plan. And every plan has God's providence over all of it. And the providence of God means that He is for us. So why wouldn't we turn that around? And why wouldn't we be for the people who God places in our path? Let's be for the people in our community. Let's be for the people who we can build up and who we can encourage. A lot of times we know what Christians are against, right? But we don't know what they're for. In this church, here's what we're going to do in the future. We are going to know, people are going to know what we are for. We are for the people God loves. We are for people. We are for people of every kind of people that God has created on this earth. We are for children. We are for adults. We are always for people because God is for people. So instead of complaining about people, why don't we become fans of people? Why don't we attempt to lift them up, to bless them, to honor them, to love on them? That is the lesson of Pharaoh's daughter. And then lastly, the lesson of Moses' mother. And this is an intense one. To trust God's plan. What could she have said? I mean, she was a follower of God as a Hebrew. They believed in one true God and that God had a purpose for their lives. It's one of the reasons why the Jewish people, the Hebrews, were treated so poorly in the ancient world. Because the ancient world believed in many gods. And the Israelites, the Hebrews, believed in one God, and he had a purpose for them. So they were looked on as weirdos. But you don't know what I've gone through, she could have said. You don't know who I've lost, my son, she could have said. You don't know where I'm at in this life, or where I could have been. No. But isn't it great? Isn't it great that God has a plan for your life no matter what you are going through, or no matter what we all are going through? Moses' mother lost her son, and then, in this epic twist of providence, was able to take care of him. But then he moved back to the palace. I mean, the trust that she had to have. I don't know. I mean, it'd be very difficult for me to place that kind of trust in God if something like that was to happen to one of my kids. What kind of trust are you placing in God during these very difficult days? How are you moving after and following after his Spirit? I got to tell you, church, this is an easy message. This isn't an easy message for me to preach, for me to talk to you, for me to share with you. It's difficult. This is the hardest one of the three, to trust God's plan. In the midst of adversity, in the midst of difficulty, what kind of trust? Because he has a plan. He brings people in, leaders in, and he takes them out. He allows us to take care of people. And so this is what we do, guys. We take care of the hurting and the oppressed. God has a plan for them, just like he has a plan for you and I. We take every opportunity we can to give someone a hand or to help them. And we trust God's plan. Because here's what we know. That Pharaoh's daughter, that the midwives, that Pharaoh's mother didn't know. Moses was going to lead his people out of Egypt. And what you don't know is what's at the other end of your story or someone else's story.
give you something for the start and the end. Ready?
Yeah, that'd be great.
If we have like an intro, I don't know, 15, 20 seconds long, and it's where we were a year ago. Set up from one fast into like a whole bunch of stuff, just normal, the old normal life. People are going hard to investigate our lives, and then it ramps and ramps. Cuts. Maybe you can find a really cool way to transition into a title. And then we'll go on the song.
Everyone seems to clap when they do it. Is this height correct? Because I couldn't remember.
There's a grace when the heart is under fire. Another way when the walls are closing in. And when I look at the space between where I used to be and this reckoning, I know I will never be alone. There was another in the fire, standing next to me. There was another in the waters, holding back the seas. And should I ever need reminding of how I've been set free, there is a cross that bears the burden where another died for me. There is another in the fire. Oh, my dead left for dead beneath the water. I'm no longer a slave to my sin anymore. And should I fall in the space between what remains of me and this reckoning, either way I won't bow to the things of this world. And I know I will never be alone. There is another in the fire, standing next to me. There is another in the waters, holding back the seas. And should I ever need reminding what power set me free, there is a grave that holds nobody. Now that power lives in me, there is another in the fire. 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 I can see the light in the darkness as the darkness passes through him. I can hear the roar in the heavens as the space between wasting. I can feel the ground shake beneath us as the bricks and walls cave in. Nothing stands between us, and nothing stands between us. There is no other name but the name that is Jesus. He who was and still is and will be through it all. So come on, mate, in the space between all the things unseen and this reckoning. I know I will never be alone. There'll be another in the fire, standing next to me. There'll be another in the waters, holding back the seas. And should I ever need reminded how good you've been to me, I'll count the joy come every
think what would be awesome is if you could find a really cool way to basically tell everybody in the world that we love them, that we miss them, that we're all in it together, and that we'll see them soon. And then I think cut into the video of Dabs' kid, Rose, speaking, which is a miracle.
You say, never be alone. So.
Hey, thanks so much for checking out chaffin.online.church. I'm thankful that you could join us. As you know, I am in Vermont, in this beautiful country. It's just incredible. But ultimately, I know, I'm going to change this whole thing. Okay. I'm going to move my... Hey, thank you so much for joining me at chaffin.online.church. I hope this has been an encouragement to you, and I'm really excited about our church coming together and being a fan of the people around us, of being cheerleaders, of building up and not tearing down. That's what we're going to do. That's how we're going to lead through this crisis, okay? Through all the transition that's happening right now. We're going to lead and we're going to push because we are going to be for our community and for the people around us. For those of you who call Chaffin Church your home, I want to say thank you for giving generously to God's work here in Holden, Massachusetts. There's lots of things you can give to right now, and just the fact that we're able to do what we're able to do because of the generosity of you and those like you who call Chaffin Church your home is so awesome. And so thank you that you can send your giving to 155 Shrewsbury Street in Holden, or you can go to chaffin.church and give there on our online site. That's also where you can get a lot of the information that goes on at the church. I got to tell you this, one thing too. We are looking for leaders. And so I know that this is going to be one of the announcements that we put out there, but it's super important as we move into September that we find some leaders who are able to lead things like our small groups, who are able to lead Bible studies, who are able to lead prayer teams, who are able to lead missions teams. If you are someone like that or you know someone like that, please, if you see something, say something, right? We need leaders to step up and to take part in what God is doing in our community. Okay, don't be shy. Step up. This is your turn. And we're going to be for you as well. God bless you guys. Have an awesome day.